All right, what's up, flippers? I'm gonna do a completely raw, unedited video. I want to talk about the 5 stages of house flipping, and this isn't coming from a guru, somebody who's done hundreds or thousands of flips. I'm actually, for some of you who don't know my story, I struggled for 2 or 3 years wanting to do house flips with my wife, and we just never could get over that hump, right? So today I want to take time to reflect on just like the last 3 to 4 months of growing our own house flipping business. We're on our third house flip already, and I just want to give you a non-edited, just nothing planned type of video so that you understand kind of not only what house flipping's like, but what you're missing out on. And I don't really know why, myself included, so many people are terrified of getting into the house flipping game, but obviously it's for, monetary reasons. You just don't want to lose your ass all the time. But, once you get into this thing, I always wondered, I'm like, why are these people that I look at like 1 year ago, brand new into house flipping, now doing 100 of them a year? Like, why do all of them move so quickly? So I do have a couple like notes because I just want to stay in order, but I want to give you like my true, honest, raw, kind of like perspective of house flipping from a rookie standpoint, from a beginner. So again, if you haven't followed me, and I'm going to be going through this, but real quick, the fourth level, I think that's probably the most difficult, and why people do lose money. And then the fifth one, at the end is just, it's the make or break. It means everything. And doing it 3 times now, or 2 times, 2.5, I can really, lay into what that stage 5 really means to, me, my business, and you, if you want to be a flipper. So I think we're going to break these things down, and you're going to have a good understanding of how you can get into the house flipping business and be profitable at the end of the day. So the very first stage of house flipping, I'm looking at it right now, is really just like your brain getting into house flipping. Again, I don't know why it's so difficult, but we just have this hurdle in our mindset that, I'm going to lose money. And even if you start looking at deals, you kind of pull yourself out of it quickly. And so if you're like me, you guys, comment down below. Yeah, that's me. I took, 2 years of researching. And I think one of the major issues is all of the research, right? You've heard of the statement, analysis by paralysis, or no, paralysis by analysis, I think it is. And that's kind of what happens. And when you start researching and listening to all these different flippers who do this kind of flip and those kind of flips, you don't even know where to start. You're like, oh, I kind of want to do that flip. Oh, I kind of want to build houses. I kind of want to go the long game. At the end of the day, through these 5 stages, I'm going to break it down to where you'll know exactly how to do this stuff. But the first stage really is the hardest one, and it's doing it. So now that that's over with, we're going to get into stage 2 of house flipping. And this is where the meat and potatoes come, because I know you're probably watching this going, yep, that stage 1 is right where I'm at. I just can't get over the hump. And I feel like I'm well educated over this, but for some reason, I'm just too scared. So number 2 stage of house flipping is F it, screw it. I'm doing this, and I'm doing it right now. And I will never forget when that happened to me. Now, I'm going to do a follow-up video to this where I'm going to take all of your guys' questions from this YouTube channel, and I'm going to answer them, because you guys are asking some awesome questions about house flipping from a rookie standpoint, just like me. And I'm going to take those and answer them. But one of the questions that I can answer right now came from one of you guys about, like, how did you find your contractor? What's that relationship like? And so when you get into phase 2 of like, I'm doing this, I can tell you right now, and again, I'm just kind of looking at my notes so that I stay on there. The contractor make or breaks everything. You are not going to be successful in this. And again, we're going to touch on stage 4 because it's going to spill over into that. But if you don't have that contractor, and not only a contractor, but somebody who understands the start to finish aspect and has multiple different trades involved that they have access to. Now, a little backstory. I am brand new into house flipping, but I got caught up in the craze back in like right basically in COVID, when everybody was buying these houses like really far out into the country and then you short-term rent them. I bought one in Tennessee on a river and I thought I was just gonna get rich. Well, I caught the tail end of that to where COVID was gone and basically all of those rentals, they turned into not much renting at all. I mean, here and there, summer months, but everybody was going back to the city. So that phase is over with. And the reason I bring that up, I did a flip, or not a flip, but I bought that property that needed a lot of work in Tennessee. It was 15 hours away from me on a good day. So when things went wrong, you're screwed. You have no way of going and checking that thing. So you have to rely on people. Well, I found a contractor there. In fact, I just wanted him to go and do my flooring. That was it. Like, hey, gut the flooring out and put it in. He's like, perfect. So we show up. Within a day and a half, he literally had the whole house stripped down and brand new flooring in there, and it was perfect. And I'm like, man, you do good work, you know. And he's like, well, what else are you doing to this house? And I'm like, man, I got to do a deck, you know, I need to do the kitchen, I got some bathroom work I need done, you know. It wasn't like a total flip job, but I needed to get it up and running and looking good for short-term rentals. He's like, I got you, man, I can do all of it, I have everybody. I'm like, really? And he throws me a quote. It was like $28,000, and I'm like, that's actually pretty good. Like, wow, okay. And so it's going good, you know, right out of the gate. Next thing you know, people aren't showing up, and I'm kind of like, what's going on? Then the excuses start happening. So if your contractor starts giving you a bunch of excuses, like my family members are sick, my wife got sick, whatever, they're screwing you over. Just plain and simple. I'm sure there's a million of these house flippers and you know, investors out there who have those same stories. So if you start hearing a bunch of different excuses from your contractor, they're getting screwed by their people, and they're going to screw you over. Long story short, yes, he ends up walking away with basically, you know, about half of that money. So I remember giving him about $12,000 to $14,000. And I had already paid him about $8,000 for the work done, but the other, you know, 10, 12, 14,000, I lost it. The reason I say that is because you might get somebody who's very good at flooring or plumbing or a framer, and they say, yeah, I can do all the rest. They bite off more than they can chew, and they think they have friends who will come in and do that, but they don't do the job right, or they underpay them, then they need more money from you, and then they don't show back up and do it. That's the horror stories that you hear over and over and over from people doing this. Don't worry, it gets easier, and I'll give you plenty of examples on how you can overcome this. But right out of the gate, when you're in phase 2 of like, I'm doing this, go find a contractor. Now, again, maybe some of you don't know my story. I have been documenting our house flipping business from the ground up. That's why I named this channel that. So I've actually showed you in multiple videos where I go and tour properties, and guess who's there? A full-on contractor who gives you a bid down to the penny. And I've actually asked multiple people. In fact, some of you guys have commented who are in the Houston market and been like, yeah, I've actually met him, he's great. So there are ways to find really good contractors, and you can also look in Facebook groups where some of these contractors are posting too. But now that you're doing this, before you even get the contractor, the first thing you need to do, set yourself up an LLC. So I finally got my first flip. I got an offer accepted, and I'm ready to go, but I had to close it in like 7 days. I was freaking out. Oh, and by the way, you need an LLC to get hard money. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but I recommend right out of the gate, get you an LLC. You don't want to be flipping these properties in your name, and that may take you some time. You can do it yourself online, or you can pay a CPA. I did a video on this, and I showed you my receipt and everything. It was about $1,200, but they did it in about a day and a half, and it was set up perfectly for all of my tax purposes. So that's probably, I would imagine, on the higher end maybe of what it costs to get an LLC, but you definitely need one. Next up, I get this question on my channel all the time. My market might be a little expensive, or it's a little competitive. You know, I'm thinking about branching out to these other markets. Well, you can resort back to the last 2 or 3 minutes of me telling my sob stories and horror stories. I'm going to tell you right now, even as a rookie house flipper, that's probably the worst mistake you can make. Is now I'm finally going to get over the hump, but I'm going to go to a completely different market that I don't know anybody, and I'm going to try and do this. If I'm telling you, I had like water heater issues, right? Well, then I get a contractor to come out and look at it. It's like $2,500 you need to basically rip the whole house down. I'm like, What? And I'm a pretty handy dude, so I could probably go fix this thing for like 50 bucks, or worst case scenario, I got to change out the water heater. That's 500 to 600. So it's like, you just never know. And when you're not there personally, whether you're getting, your butt handed to you or not. I think later on down the road, and I might even experiment with this, is now I'm getting some connections with people who find good deals. They've already got the contractors in place. They can prove that model, and I can team up with them, whatever it is. But there's plenty to do in your local markets, and stay there, especially for your first one. The other thing is deal flow. Where are you going to find these deals? So when you decide I'm doing this, again, I've documented all of this from a rookie standpoint. There's not really any videos out there like this. I'm not tooting my horn, but I was dying for this information. That's probably why it took me so long to get into house flipping, because this, rookie information, this rookie insider just wasn't there. So you will see, in some of my videos where I made the dumbest Facebook post ever, like, is there ways to get creative money on house flips? And there was a bunch of comments of like, wait, what are you talking about? Creative what? Like, you're an idiot. But that's how about 3 good people reached out to me, and that's how I met Hard Money. So Hard Money, we got Joey Davis, part of the team here. In fact, the free calculator, everything's down there. Everybody's like, where do I get my Joey? Y'all can contact him. He works in 48 states. I have my free calculator from his company. It's in the description. You can click on that, and then you can go in there and actually reach out to him. That's how I get a lot of properties comp. That's how you guys have heard him on almost every video of like, hey, is this a good deal? Is that not a good deal? Whatever. And he's answering all those questions. So he's probably not going to do that for the entire world here, but by making that simple, stupid post on Facebook, I created 3 connections with wholesalers, with hard money lenders. And these are people that gave me way more insight of local, I'm talking local knowledge, than listening to the podcast or reading the books of kind of generalities. So the deal flow can come from that, and then your Facebook marketplaces. So I did, even on video 2, the second video on this channel, I broke down exactly how I found my deals. I showed that post that I'm talking about, and how many deals come in. Now I look at my email box, I probably have 500 deals in there. Do all of them calculate? No, not at all. Do some of them? Yeah, there's some, and they're not really in the areas. And that's crazy about this is I went from going to I only want to do flips in this market to I thought I wanted to branch up to the northern sections, to where I ended up finding one completely down in the southeast territory, and then I found another one down there, and now I'm like, this is where I want to be. Small little mini flips, right? They can do them quick. So you never even know, even when you get started in this, where you're going to end up. But by analyzing deal after deal after deal, you start to realize, if they're good deals or not, how much they would cost for renovations, all of those things. So I do have a cool tool in the description as well called Propelio. I'm not a licensed agent in the state of Texas, so I have no ability to get to the MLS and comp deals, which that is the make or break of house flipping as well. If you buy into a bad deal, you're probably not going to make a lot of money. So you got to be able to comp them. Me as a non-licensed agent, you as well. This is where you can put in the address, and you can get the comparable sales right there really quick. So you guys check that out in the description. And then next thing is going to be the money. In fact, that's something I'll probably put into phase 3 here in a second. But the last part of I'm doing this, phase 2, is the mental mindset of I'm not going to make $1 million my first flip. In fact, I might not even make 100,000 or 70,000. When I got into this, you hear of all the gurus out there, and you look at every YouTube video. What do they all say? How I made 100,000 on this flip. I made 150,000 on this flip. I made 98,000 on this flip. It's always like these crazy success stories. I didn't find a lot of them out there where they're like, yeah, I actually lost my ass on this. Or, like on our first flip, we were looking at an $83,000 profit until my inspection came up, and the foundation was completely unlevel, and that was $30,000 that we knocked off the price. So I lost out on 30 grand on my first flip just because, I didn't get maybe an inspection done beforehand or level this thing. So, right out of the gate, you got to realize, okay, if I can get into this thing and walk away with maybe $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in profit, that's pretty good. Now, that's market specific, because I don't really feel like I want to go buy, like if I'm in an expensive market, an $800,000 house. You probably have to do $150,000 in reno, you know, and then you sell it for $1 million and you're walking away with 30 to 50 grand. There's too much variable there. So I think the more expensive markets, you're probably looking for bigger flips, you know, and that's a lot of work. So you really got to look at the contractors. But, you know, in the market that I'm in, we're finding houses for 40, 60, 70 grand, you know, or even my first one was 250, but it had a good ARV of 450. There was a lot of wiggle room in there, but you got to just tell yourself, man, at the end of the day, if I can park my money or just a little bit of money into this asset, you know, if you want to call it an asset, or into this stock or whatever it is, and in 3 months or 6 months, you know, hopefully not 6 months, but 3 months or 4 months, after everything's all paid, you're walking away with 30 grand. That's a pretty good return, right? Especially if you're leveraging hard money and you've only got to put in maybe 6, 8, 10, 12,000. You're talking about over 100% on your money. You're not going to get that in the stock market. So again, I know there's taxes and all that involved. We're not talking about that. So phase 2 is I'm doing this, and that's really how I got my start. And I want you to also realize that, you know, those are kind of the steps you need to take. And that's the mindset that you have to have and the ways that you can start finding deals. So I love, you know, doing this from a perspective. It's all story form because I'm so new into this too. I had to get a quick drink that hopefully I can relate with you guys a little bit. So phase 3, all right, I'm in contract. I'll never forget when I finally got my offer accepted. I am like shaking right now. Okay, I got it for you. I'll send over the assignment and everything in a little. Holy shit. What did I do? And I'm sitting here, I'm in this chair right here, and I'm just like, my hand was just shaking. I'm like, I almost wanted to pull the plug. I'm like, nope, I don't want to do this. It's not a good deal. Like I was trying to talk myself out of it and talk myself, and you're going to feel that too. So in phase 3, when you're getting into contract, you're going to be overwhelmed. You're going to think you're making a mistake. And I'm telling you right now, it's like, once you get through that first one, it's truly a remarkable feeling. But right out of the gate, you're going to get into contract, and you need to decide, which you probably did before, are you doing a hard money loan or are you just paying cash, right? Now, there's a lot of videos, there's a lot of titles, how to flip with no money. There's not really a way to do that unless you have a good friend or somebody who's not only going to loan you the money, but if they loan you the money for the hard money, you still have to prove. All right, so there might be one edit because my camera got too hot and it shut off. But you have to prove liquidity. If you hear a slight little buzz, that's a fan that I now have on my camera to cool it down. So at the end of the day, when they say zero money down, I'm not really buying that. And then it's your first flip. Like that's kind of hard to go convince somebody to give you. Now I get it if you have a friend, they're like, all right, I'll loan you $250,000. That's a good friend. But for the most part, and in my case, I had, you know, some money set aside that it was just sitting there, you know, gaining a fraction of a percent in a bank account. And I'm like, I really want to do this house flipping stuff. So at the end of the day, if you're going to go with the hard money route, first and foremost, go back to phase 2, you got to get an LLC. You cannot get hard money without having an LLC and a business bank account. So those were all things that when I got into contracts, so I'm in phase 3, I didn't know any of that stuff. None of it. So I didn't have an LLC. I didn't have a business bank account. I documented the whole thing. It's in all these videos. And I highly recommend, we'll take a second. After this video, if you're new here, just go back to video 1 and just start watching them in chronological order. And you'll see this whole entire flower bloom. You know, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But if you're going to be leveraging hard money, which I prefer right now, then you're going to need that LLC, you're going to need the business bank account, but you also have to realize there are some costs associated with that. And again, I have an entire video where I broke down the house that I bought, the closing costs, the hard money payments, when the payments are due, all of the fees associated. I even bring up my HUD statement, which I don't even know what that stands for, but my closing costs, how much I had to bring to table. Those videos are on this channel, but just know you have to do that, right? And I'm going to actually break down a lot of those costs real quick that you've never heard of. 2, if you're going to do it versus cash, I don't really need to say too much, but my thought is like, okay, I'm doing 2 flips right now. One I purchased for $44,000. The other one I purchased for $76,000. So you're at what, 300 and or sorry, 117,000. Let's just give it 120 grand right there. And then each reno, one of them, which we just posted on the last video, that was about 63,000. So now you're at 183,000. And the next one, my third one, well, we're not done with it yet. So let's just put it at about 70,000 because we're building that accessory dwelling unit, which coming up in a video soon. Hopefully I'm going to get over this permit issue that I've been, because I got red tagged by the city. And I'm going to show you, I actually have crazy video clips in interviews with the city, and I break down how to not beat it, but get your actual permits, because it's not as easy as people think. It's actually been a major pain in the butt. So that one, now we're at 180 plus, we'll do 70. So that's $250,000 in cash. That's a boatload of cash, right? So if I were to do that, right, that's 250K. I can't really go do anything else. Or maybe you can. Maybe you got millions of dollars. Great. But the majority of us getting in the house flipping, we don't have 250,000. So what I'm into both of those is I was into the first one about 6,000, 7,000 in closing costs, and then when you pay for what I'm going to talk about here, all said and done, what I had to bring to the actual table, one of them was about 9,000, the other one was about 18, so you're at about 27,000. And then with what I'm going to talk about here, let's just call it about $28,000 to $30,000 to get into these two flips. Now, that's because of my 70% loan to value or 75% loan to value. Now, I've done, again, videos on that. If you don't know what I mean, there is that cash calculator down below. So once you find a property on Facebook and the purchase price is, let's say it's, the ARV is $200,000. That means after you do all of your renovations, it's $200,000 is what you think you can sell it for, which is exactly what we're listing our property for. If you're going to do a 70% loan to value, then you're looking at 30%, right, of that 200,000 or 70%. So you go 200,000 times 70%. That's going to put you at about $140,000. And then you got to take your budget. We're saying 70 on this one. So in order to use a hard money loan and to go least amount of money out of pocket, just paying closing costs, you got 140,000 minus the 70 puts you what, at 70,000 bucks, right? So that's what makes it go about 6,000. Now let's say we get that purchase price at about $90,000. Well, there's $20,000 gap there. That's going to come out of my pocket because the hard money loan lender is not going to loan on that 20 grand. They're just going off those calculations. Again, down in the description, and I'll try and pin it in the comment, free cash calculator, no strings attached. It's what I use to do all of that math, and then you can break down your closing costs. And Hard Money Joe, once you get into there, you can reach out to him. He's licensed to do these hard money loans in like 48 states, he said, so he can help you out. So what does that mean? Hard money loan, 12 to 14%. You're looking at interest only payments, right? So you're going to get interest only payments. It's running about 12 to 14%. Let me cover something real quick. Again, raw, unedited. When I started, or even before I started forever, I always heard the term hard money. In fact, I heard that way before I even wanted to get into flipping. I was like, dude, that is like the most back alley illegal shit I have ever heard in my life. Like, do you go to prison for hard money? Like, what is hard money? I thought it was something dirty, but it's really not. And it's somebody, who has a bank of money from investors, maybe 40 million, 80 million, maybe a couple hundred million, and they loan that money out, and there's going to be a 12% interest on there. But I'm allowed to do a flip at 70% ARV, right? And I can come out of pocket $8,000, and I'm going to get the purchase, so they're going to buy that house, and they're going to pay for my entire renovation budget. So I just have to come up with the monthly payments that are interest only. And what I've learned is that payment's going to get bigger and bigger the more that they're loaning you. Seems pretty, irrelevant. No, not irrelevant. Seems pretty obvious, right? So I'm having right now with these lower end flips about $1,300 a month to $1,500 a month in interest only payments. So that's why you don't want to stretch these things out. We're going to get into that in phase 4 and 5 here in a little bit. But you're at 12 to 14% payments, and it's kind of like buying a house too. So like I closed, I think in March, and my first, like the beginning of March, like 12th or something, and my first payment isn't until like May 1st, right? So almost 2 months that I get, no payments there. So if you can get in and jam these things out, again, I'm going to talk about this here in a second. then you can definitely save yourself some money. But it is, you know, a retroactive payment, so they will. It's not like those payments go away. If you owe about 1,300, 1,500 payments, and then whatever you owe in interest, that will be at the closing table, but at least it's coming out of your profits and not a payment you got to make. So if you're in contract, you're still in phase 3. Next thing is a renovation budget. This is everything. You've got to have that good contractor who goes in there, who's licensed. If you're leveraging hard money, right? If you're leveraging hard money, then you have to have this renovation budget. If you're buying it cash, you're just buying the house cash and you do whatever you want with it, right? A lot of this doesn't account for that, but it, you know, I would imagine the majority of you want to do a hard money loan of some sort to get into this. So you have to have a renovation budget. And the first time we did this, my contractor just sent me over, all right, it's going to be about, you know, $78,000. And I'm like, cool. Well, they're like, okay, you got to break that down. You got to itemize it. So we itemized little by little, and they're like, no, you got to go and, like, I'm talking windows, trim, exterior paint, interior paint, the cost of just the drywall, the cost to tape texture and float the drywall, you know, all of that stuff, tile, grout, bathrooms, electrical, fans, fixtures, mirrors. You really got to break this down. In fact, I did a video on it where I took the budget list from Joe from Hard Money, from my lender, the one that they actually use and go off of, and I made my own Excel spreadsheet so we can print those out. And now when we go look at properties, we just mark what we think exactly what, you know, the cost is to do every one of those. So if we do buy it, I can submit that like that. So I'm only 3 flips in and I already learned that, right? So that's something that you know, you got to break down, know ahead of time. Okay, if I'm going into the contract, I got to get contractors in there to not only break it down, but I need it itemized. I mean, down to the T, everything on there. Then the next thing came up. Hey, what insurance are you using? I'm like, insurance for what? Like, I need house insurance? They're like, no, you need builder's risk insurance, and another one. I don't know what it is. And you can also get these quoted. So when I was going through my first flip, they just kind of gave me a company, and this wasn't Hard Money. Hard Money Joe actually referred me off to another bigger company because we had to do it in like 3 days, really quick. And the builder's risk insurance came back at $2,500. You just got to pay. You got to pay it cash up front, right? So again, another closing cost, another cost associated with this. And I started reaching out to a few other people. In fact, Ozzy, who's listing my house right now, who was in the last video, he goes, yeah, dude, I got a guy. So I reach out to him. His name's Dylan, and I said, I need builder's risk insurance. And he gave me a quote at $1,250. So I went from $2,500 to literally 50% and to $1,250. And it's also if you don't use it all. So I did a 6-month insurance on that. You get prorated for the months, days, hours you don't use. And so I ended up at the end of that one, I got a couple $100, you know, $500-600 check back because I only used it for like 2 months. So that was kind of cool. And that's something that you need to know, is that you're going to have a builder's risk insurance. And I was like, asking Hard Money, I'm like, yo, do you need this stuff? And he's like, yeah, you kind of want that. You never know what's going to go on. So definitely get builder's risk insurance. Then if you're doing Hard Money, did you know you need to get an appraisal, and you got to pay for that? I pay $525 for my appraisals. That is what goes off. So you can call your ARV anything. So let's say I know I can sell this thing once I'm done, because we do nice flips, at $200,000. Well, if the appraisal comes in and they say, no, it's about 180, that is your ARV. That is the number that the Hard Money lender's going off of. So at the beginning, you may say, yeah, my ARV is 200,000, and you know, I'm buying this thing for 70 grand, and I'm doing the, you know, 70,000 reno, so I have like minimal closing costs. I'm good to go. Well, their ARV comes back at 180, and you're like, well, you know, what do I do? And they're like, well, you cover it. So that extra $20,000 there now is coming out of your pocket. So you really, 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 really need to know your comps and what you truly think it's going to appraise for, so that you're not, you know, let's say you don't have that 20 grand, you're kind of screwed there, right? You got to drop out of contract or whatever. So, or, you know, you just got to pay that extra fee, which you do get back, right? So what it is, it's just a down payment. So if you do pay it, that's just $20,000 sitting basically in escrow, and then as soon as you close, you get that chunk back. So it's not like you lose it. And then here in Texas, I'm not sure, you guys can comment down below, but in our state of Texas, you have to have a survey, and If the seller, which a lot of times you're buying older distressed properties, they don't have them, you got to pay for a survey. So that's another fee that comes and is a closing cost. And then there are closing costs, obviously associated. I'm not going to go into it. You can mess with that calculator. It's going to break down a lot of the closing costs, but you do need to be very mindful that if you're buying a property from a wholesaler, they may say like, hey, you have closing costs. You got to pay all closing costs. Not a huge deal being the buyer, but make sure that you obviously are going through a title company, or if you're in a state that works with like title lawyers or whatever the heck they're called, that they clear all title, right? Because you don't want to get slapped with a lien or child alimony or whatever the heck it is. And that's kind of what I learned 2 times, is that we've had some clouds on title. We were able to get them all cleared, which is pretty cool. But one time, on the second house, Honeycutt, that we bought, the lady was 80-something years old, didn't have good vision, and so they went to her house. They were doing a mobile notary. She lives in Georgia. She's selling this thing here in Houston, and they went to her house. She's kind of blind, so they're like, I don't know if we can sign. They have to be coherent. They can't be in any raw mental, in a bad mental state. They got to be able to hear, see. They have to know what they're signing, or else title can't sign them. Well, she was good to go, and then they read her that she was going to make like $38,700 instead of $40,000 even because of some closing costs that was on there. She freaks out, kicks out the mobile notary, get the hell out of my house, blows up the entire deal. We were like, what? So what happened is there was 2 sellers. There was a $5,400 lien on the property, and it was split between the 2 of them at closing. She didn't know that, and so that went on to hers, which got her below the $40,000, and she thought she was getting $40,000 even. So that completely destroyed her profits, and that's why she booted everybody out of her house. So now again, one more quick edit, only because not only did my 4-year-old, but his friend came barging in and blew through the door, and that's why I had another edit. So that basically wraps up phase 3, and now what we're going to do is going to phase 4. And before I get into that, I'm just going to ask you guys one thing real quick. I'm getting the coolest comments from you guys, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this channel doesn't have 100,000 subscribers or 1 million views or whatever. It's fresh, it's new, YouTube doesn't know me, I don't know what it is. It's up to you guys. You guys have to engage with this video. So just hit pause, like hit that like button, and just comment something down below. Maybe just comment like, just helping you out, brother, like Rookie House Flipper here, helping you out. Anything. I think that engagement will help these videos. That's the only thing I ask from you guys, and I will just completely be raw, honest with you guys and keep documenting this. Stage 4, it comes down to the purchase. So you're in contract, you clear the title, you got all the money lined up, you're ready to close. Oh my gosh, Rookie House Flippers, there's a lot that we don't know. And it's so funny because when I say it to Hard Money Joe, who flipped 100 houses too, you know, all these people that have been doing all these house flips, they're like, yeah, you dummy, like, why didn't you know? I'm like, because you guys never do videos about this stuff. And so here we are as rookies just getting our butt kicked after, you know, time after time. So you're going to close on this, right? Let's say you close on a Friday. Oh, I didn't even write this down, and I'm so glad I said this. I put the closing date on a Friday for my first 2 flips. Guess what we didn't do? Close on a Friday. It was always the following week. Something happens. Crazy lady who's blind, can't sign in Georgia, losing $1,000, blows the deal up. Whatever it is, and guess what? Nobody's open on the weekends. So I had my entire contracting crew stand by like, can we just go? Can we start? And I'm like, no, because if this doesn't go, we're screwed. So I'm glad I said this, guys. Make sure that you put your closing date on like a Tuesday. That way, if it falls out, you have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to get that thing back in, and then you can start blowing and going over the weekend or whatever. But oh man, there's nothing worse than being completely helpless when you can't close on Friday. And it happened to me 2 times. My first flip, we couldn't close. And then even when we did close, they wouldn't give me the frickin' keys. So I had to wait all the way till the next weekend. My second flip, the lady blew it up. We had to wait all the way to the next week. So make your closing date on like a Tuesday. So let's say it is on a Tuesday and you do miraculously close on a Tuesday or that Thursday, Friday, you need to be calling the utility companies ahead of time. Get your utility set up. Here in Texas, it's a disaster because they have like this shared energy where you don't pay the power company. There's like 8 billion different power companies. And anyways, we set an account up with the biggest middleman energy provider so that we can just go in there and add the address. So you got to have that power. My first flip, we forgot to do this. Yes, we forgot to set up the freaking utilities, so there was no power there. So my contractors, you know, were basically battery operated for, you know, I think it was like a day and a half or something. So make sure that. Now, one thing about that, let's say the house has gas, but you don't really need the gas the whole time you're going to be working there or for a few weeks. Sometimes smaller cities, smaller municipal, like they run the power, they run the gas, they run the water. So if you're in there blowing and going and tearing stuff up, maybe you don't want them coming and look, whatever it is, and you don't need it. Like that's actually something we've waited to get the gas turned on a couple weeks because the city comes and does it. So that's one thing, but you got to make sure that you get these utilities on and get them transferred into your name, because that's another thing. Some of these cities are older and they don't take electronic payments. Like, what world are we living in? So the one that, you know, the ones we're flipping now, we got to drive all the way down there. We got to go into a physical office to get water and you know, gas and stuff going. So kind of a pain in the ass, but you know, you want to make sure ahead of time you're already in contract. You know, you're closing in a week, 2 weeks, like you're already getting all of your utilities signed up for that closing day and have them ready to go. Next up, I got screwed twice on this. Get your own lock boxes. I went to Amazon and I think it was about 50, 55, 56 bucks, something like that, $60. I bought a 6-pack of the digital dial lock boxes. So on my very first one, again, we couldn't get into it and she had the keys and she held it for like 2 days, and the agent on the other end of the transaction was not a nice person. So I think she was just extra holding on to them. And had we have like right away just went and grabbed a copy of the key, put it in a lockbox, we'd have been fine. The second house, if you guys followed me, I documented all this. What kept happening? He kept saying he's putting the key in the spot. Oh, sorry, bro, I had to take it. I thought somebody's going to break in. And then he puts the key, you know, he's going to put the key back in the morning. Oh, I guarantee it, bro. I'll have it there in the morning. What did he do? He slept in. So that was the point. I bought lock boxes. So now I go, and the first thing we do is we grab that key and we make a, you know, a copy of it, and then I slap a lockbox on there because, again, I'm doing hard money. Inspectors, appraisers, they all got to get into this thing, and if you don't have the key, you're screwed. And for some reason, when it comes to house flips and the people you're buying it from, they don't give a shit. They want to sell it, they want their money, they want to get out of it, but they'll do nothing to help the situation. So make sure you get lock boxes, and that also helps you throughout the entire purchase. Now I've got my contractors there. Anybody can go there, and I have that code. Those boxes are very simple to go in there and change the codes if you need to, like a little button, you can change them. But I also made all my lock boxes the same, so you know you can get into them, and my contractor knows that as well. So yes, get lock boxes. Then the next thing you're gonna need to set up right away is a dump trailer. So if if your crew goes in there and they start demoing, they got nowhere to put this stuff, and then you call a company, they may not be able to drop it for a day, 2 days, 3 days. So you want to make sure, again, you're getting like a big dump trailer, big dump, you know, set up for your crew so that they can get all of that stuff into the trailer. And as soon as it's about 3/4 of the way full, tell your contractor, call me when this thing's 3/4 of the way full. I'm gonna get this thing dumped and out of here, right? My contractor, again, he's the GOAT. He's got his own trailer. He's got about 3 or 4 trailers, so he'll just bring those in, load them up, take them out, load them up, and it saves us a cost. We're also splitting our, you know, the cost of everything and the profits. You guys have asked me that. I'm probably going to do a video on that as well, but make sure you get that dump trailer. Next up, this is where, you know, we're starting to shift a little bit. Okay, now we're in there. We bought it. What are we going to do with it? Are we going with a high-end flip or a low-end flip, right? The business model that we have is we're always going to try and beat the top of the market flip. Like, we're always going to try and make the nicest product. That's a design, you know, that's a process that my wife truly loves. That's the main reason we wanted to get into flipping was, you know, one, make a lot of extra money, but two, she just loves that design process. So I think whenever I'm looking at comps, you're always looking at the flips next door, and they're like, you know, they do carpet paint. They kind of just redo the cabinets, Formica countertops, quick appliances, and they're going. But they're probably, maybe that's a business model where they're doing 100 of them a year, and it's just like, okay, we'll do minimal work, minimal profits. But I tend to see those, it seems like, sitting on the market longer. That's going to go into stage 5, which is the make or break of your entire deal. But for us personally, we just like making our products look the best. And with that, you know, we're going to do more high-end stuff. Our budgets are going to be a little bit higher. And that's what's, you know, funny is I had that other contractor give me budgets. They were always a lot less than ours, but we noticed that a lot of the things he was using was more just like very general, very generic. So it would look amazing all said and done, but we kind of tend to go with the higher end stuff. So you got to kind of just figure out what, you know, you're going to do. And then what that leads to is you know, the demo time, and that's where your cost can significantly increase. I think the one thing that I didn't want to do, because I've bought houses personally for me and my family before and done a lot of work to them myself, and what I found I do is like kind of go through the project quick and I get the majority of the work done, and then like the last little bit I can put that off for like months, right? Or just kind of like mail it in. Plus it's me, like it's gonna take me a lot of time. I got hard money payments. So in our minds we're like, I'll just do this work myself. Well, that's how I'm gonna save the most money. If you do that, now you've got like 6 months of work. Yeah, you saved maybe, I don't know, you didn't save money. Let's just put it that way. I would highly recommend, if you're doing these flips, to have a contractor that basically has subcontractors that can do everything. I'm just telling you right now, when it comes down to it, breaking your own back and extending this thing for months and months, and maybe you're good at like framing and you're good at maybe doing some electrical, but when it comes to plumbing or like the tape, texture, mud, drywall, you're watching YouTube videos, or the trim, you don't know how to truly, you know, 45 the angles, or 22 and a halves for like for rounded corners, and it just kind of looks crappy. Those are the ones that sit. I've toured those ones, and you're just like, man, this thing looks like crap. So even though it's flipped, when you go in and think that, imagine what a buyer thinks. So now they're gonna be like, this thing's way overpriced. Man, they did terrible work. If that trim looks like that, I wonder what they did behind the walls. So that's our theory behind this, is when people walk in, they go, my goodness, this thing looks nice. Like everything looks, you know, really professionally done. And so I think it gives them more confidence. And then people are willing to pay more money because they know they can walk into not having anything to do. Again, kind of theory and personal preference, but that's my thoughts. So you need to figure out, you know, if you're going to do it yourself or have a contractor do it, or go high end or low end. And then once you're doing that, the contractors, man, they will get in there within 3 days and the thing is gutted. Like the funnest part about house flipping is the first week, because it transforms like that. I mean, they just start ripping walls down. They remove walls, they put up beams, they got everything done. That's what they love doing. That's what they're great at. It's really cool, but what that means is they're starting to put things back together, and this has happened to us, and they're like, hey, we're putting in flooring and tile, and you know, we're painting tomorrow, and we need backsplash, and we need, hey, we're going to start on the showers, we need, and then my wife's like, oh my gosh, like, so then she has to drive, we use like Floor and Decor down here, and she has to pick it out, and it's stressful. So that might be something that you kind of start looking at ahead of time, is like, okay, here are the colors, and your contractor might have, like ours, these scrap yards and stuff where they have remnant pieces, and you can go there. So that's one thing we've learned, is my wife just goes to those remnant yards and tries to find really cool tiles that kind of go together. Hey, you can do this for a bathroom, and yep, all these ones, you can put these together, put this on the floor, put this on the walls, and you know, and she goes that route. So you do have a lot of design in this, and it's not as easy as you think. You go into all these houses, or you look at pictures, you look at other people's flip, you're like, oh, I like that, or oh, I don't like that. When it's your decision and you're like, oh, what are people gonna like? You kind of like have this built up anticipation and anxiety of like, am I doing the wrong color? Is it gonna look like crap when it's all done? Oh my gosh. So just warning you ahead of time. I bet you everybody goes through that, but you know, if you, or there are companies, we actually paid a guy on one of them like $200, I think, from Floor and Decor, and he came out and brings just like boxes of tiles and carpets and colors, and he's like, no, if you go with this color, you have to go with this color. Okay, are you keeping that color there? Okay, to go with that, you have to go with here. So look at your local like big box, you know, tile stores and stuff. They have those designers that might be $200-300, and they can pick all that stuff for you, and they'll get it ordered, you know, and then your contractor picks it up, and it can really eliminate a lot of time doing that. So maybe reach out to them right through the design process and have it ready to go. Next up, is when you're doing the renovations, you uncover a lot of things. So that's where unexpected costs come. Every single time you're going to run into something. You know, two of our houses, we look, you know, from the external and there's new PEX pipe. Well, that's all they did. They did it on that one section. Then you get into the rest of the house and the whole thing is cast iron pipe. Half of it's broken. There's water leaks everywhere and you got to replace the whole thing. So you're going to see some additional costs. Now, in your hard money loan, again, I broke this down in a video. You're going to have your budget from your contractor here, and then the hard money appraiser does their, or inspector comes in and they do their budget, and it could be really close or it could be way off, right? So you may have a budget, your contractor's like, I can do this for 70 grand, no problem. They're like, no, we're seeing more like 80,000, right? Plus there's a contingency in there of about 10%. So on that 70 or 80,000, they're also going to add about 7 to 8,000 of a contingency. And what that means is that they're giving you more money because they don't want you to go broke and then they get the property back. So they're always going to go above you on their budget, and they're always going to add that contingency. And we've used it almost every single time. And maybe sometimes we want to do some cool upgrades and we're like, well, just go ahead and do it and we'll pull from the contingency. But is that going to make you more money? The reason we do it, like painting the front of our first flip white, was because every house we noticed that was painted white sold like that. So we decided to spend an extra $4,400 I think to paint the outside of our house white. That wasn't in our initial budget, but we were able to pull that from the contingency. And that's the point that I want to get to. When you open the walls, when you're doing these flips, there's a lot of things that you can add to or subtract to make more money. And you have to know your market. That's why when I talk to that appraiser, that's why when I talk to Ozzy or any of these other agents or Hard Money Joe, hey, what about this market? What do buyers like? Maybe they like having a big garage. They can park their trucks, whatever it is. Maybe they don't even care about a garage. They'd rather have an extra bedroom, make it a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. There's certain areas that it works and certain that it doesn't. The cool thing is you can get relationships with appraisers, and for all the appraisers that I've talked to and met, they're like, yeah, dude, send me anything. I can let you know. And that's the one that Hard Money Joe set me up with, and he let me know that, you know, in that area, by increasing to a 3-bed, 2-bath, you know, that is actually more desired and it sells for a higher number. So ask your appraiser, hey, is there anything I can do to this property to really increase the value besides what we're doing inside of, you know, new kitchen, flooring, paint, and all that. And that is something that you're going to want to know, right, is how you can add more money with less cost, make it make sense. And this is the toughest, last part of phase 4. The last 5% of your flip takes the longest. I mean, I feel like everything we've done so far, the first week and a half, 2 weeks, you're basically done. Like, everything's ripped out, everything's put back together, everything looks amazing, and then there's the last 5%. There's just little things. There's trim, there's some paint here, there's some tile there, there's some, you know, stove there, there's some water here, there's whatever it is, I don't even know, but like the last 5%, all the little touch-ups, you know, you go through and there's missing paint there, there's a ding there, there's, you know, trim missing here, there, whatever, little tiny things. So that's where, you know, don't get too ahead of yourself. Make sure this project is fully done. And if you're doing hard money loans, make sure, because you're going to be doing a draw process, I've talked about this in half a dozen videos, that they're not going to fund you if it's not 100% completed. So if you go in there, you're like, all right, looks, you know, basically done, I'll just put in for all this thing. They're going to go in there and check it. Check. Nope. And now you're left out with $10,000, $12,000 that you're not going to get paid. Well, guess what? You got to pay your contractor. You still owe them 10, 12 grand. You got to now wait till it's 100% done, but do another draw. Those draws cost you anywhere from $200 maybe to $400 a whack. So that's cutting into it. So again, those are all things that I've learned. You want to take as minimal amount of draws as possible. And when I first started, I'm like, oh, I'll just tell them that we're going to have that done by next week. They don't care. If it ain't done when they're there, they ain't paying you for it. That's how hard money's learned or work, and it's because they've been burned so much. So make sure that you have it all 100% done before you do it. So now we're getting into the final stage, phase 5. All right, so this is selling. And who would have thought this would be the most stressful and one of the toughest times? Actually doing the flips and stuff, I really enjoy it, but the selling aspect of it, you know, it can be stressful. It's tough, and one of the main reasons, price is everything. I think, you know, we always think our houses are the best. We always think that our flips are the best, and you want to price it at the top. And the theory that a lot of people have is kind of like a Craigslist. Like, I got this bike right here. I'm just going to list it for 800, and I'll take 500 to 600 on it, right? And so they know they can work you down. Well, real estate's a little different, right? If a house is overpriced and you're like, I don't care, I'll price it at 200 because I'll take 180. Well, if it sits for like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, because everybody who's looking at it is like, you're crazy. Why? This is 20, 30 grand overpriced. And they don't buy it, and it sits for weeks and weeks and weeks. First of all, that's hard money, interest only payments that you got to pay. Second of all, people go into it and go, all right, nobody's bought this for 3 or 4 weeks. What's wrong with it? There must be some major issues. So not only are they going to put an offer in at 180, which you're desperate for now they're going to beat you up on inspections and all that. So it doesn't happen all the time. And that's where having a really good listing agent. Now, there's some NAR settlement stuff coming out where you don't have to pay buyer's agents anymore. It's all fluff. Look, at the end of the day, people are going to think that they can just sell their house for like no money and not have to pay agents. What's going to happen is buyer's agents are still going to get paid. It just can't be in public remarks. So in the listing, it can't say, we're paying buyer's agents 3%. It has to be basically done via a phone call. And the reason I'm saying this is because I've had these conversations. If you want to sell your house, you still are probably going to want to offer a full buyer's agent compensation, which your listing agent will have to portray to that. Because now if this said person wants to come buy your house and they have a buyer's agent, well, if you're not offering that compensation, then the buyer has to pay the agent. Well, the buyer's most likely not going to pay the agent. So what are they going to do? They're going to move on to the next house. And that's where I see the issue coming. So just beware that, you can create a relationship with an agent, maybe charge a total of like 4.5% like I am, and not the full 6%, but you're probably still going to want to pay that buyer's agent, 2.5%, 3%, whatever's normal there, so that you get the most amount of offers. So if you're not paying buyer's agents, you're probably not going to get any offers. That's just what, the name of the game. And now that price is really going to start plummeting. And then now you're going to have to do catch up. Okay, I'll pay buyer's commission. Okay, I'll do that. And you're losing your profits. So at the end of the day, I would rather right out of the gate have it priced right, pay the full commission. Your first offer is your best offer. You're not paying a bunch of extra money, interest only payments. You're not sitting on the market making everybody worried about your property. And that is what's so terrifying, because you also don't want to list it too low. And you're like, I'll just list it at 160 trying to get multiple offers to 180 or 200. Well, what if you get one offer? You can't get them to go up, right? Unless you do something kind of dirty or whatever and tell them you have other offers. But that's the difficult part that I was struggling with, is like, you got to find that happy medium. And then a lot of times you're going to base it off of, okay, well, all these houses sold for $150 per square foot. My house is 1,200 square foot, so 150 times 12, that's exactly where I price it. The best listing agents in the country, the ones that I've looked into and watched, they don't always go with that. What they're going to do, and in fact, my last video, he broke it down. We went above what the price per square foot was, because there's 2 other flips out there that are listed a little bit higher than ours, and they don't even really look as nice as ours. So we're just a touch below them, even though they're pending. People probably either lost out on those, didn't buy them, too expensive, whatever, but they're going to see ours and go, wow, that's really nice, and it's priced a little bit lower, but we're still above what the price per square foot was. So in theory, we would have probably listed our property at 175 to 180, but since there was some listed at 205 to 220, we priced it 200. Will it work? I don't know, but that's why I like leaning on a really, really good agent, because they're gonna see what the market's doing, and that really dictates what your price is. Now, that's also something when you have a good agent and when you're comping the deal. If you go back to phase 1 and 2, 3, you really want to look at that DOM, the days on market, because if you're in an area and the days on market are all 100 days, 120, 140, things aren't selling there. But if a lot of the houses are selling in 6 days, 9 days, 15 days, 30 days, 20 days, then you're like, things are moving quick here. So price it good and you can go. Next up, pictures. Don't do all this work. Don't make a flip look amazing and then go, again, get a cheap real estate agent or skimp out on pictures. Get the best pictures that you possibly can. Like, make them look amazing. You want to get as many people into this house as you possibly can, and pictures will do it. And I've seen it. I've seen it so many times when you're comping and you're like, God, that's terrible. Like cell phone pictures and really dark pictures. I don't want to live there. It looks nasty. Get professional, high, professional pictures done. Next up is to stage or not stage. I'm probably a firm believer that every house that is professionally staged probably ends up making more money. And so I started doing some research, and there's a lot of studies out there that, staged homes bring in 30%, 60% more, whatever it is, above, not 60% above, but like a big chunk of money above houses that aren't staged. And this second house we're selling, we're not staging it. I took the advice of my agent who sells all over in there, and he said, here's what my recommendation is. On these kind of houses where you do a great job on flipping, you don't want to stage it. People want to come in, they want to see the trim work, they want to see the paint, they want to see the cabinet, they want to see everything that looks amazing and go, dang, this is a nice house. Now, if you have a contractor, if you do a low-end flip and there's kind of some scuffs and the trim doesn't line up and the paint looks then you kind of want to stage it to get their eyes onto the staging. So that's kind of the yin and yang. Or high-end flips, you definitely want to stage. So on these lower end ones where we're buying them for 44, 72, we're probably inevitably going to start staging everything. But the second one, we're trying it without staging because of the recommendation of our agent, and we did really, really nice work, and we want people to see that. So staging, it seems like you're, probably around like $1,000, $1,500 to $2,000, and that's for like a month. So basically they charge you per the month, and then if you're there for 2 months, it's like half the cost, then 30%. So that's kind of how it works from what I've found out. And then another thing that I learned, and maybe this is just in Texas, but we don't have a stove in Honeycutt. It's coming in there, our second flip. We're getting one in there. And so we can market it that way. But if you don't have a stove, if you're just doing a whole flip and you're like, screw it, they can buy their own stove. FHA loans are not approved to buy that house. So that just wipes out the entire buyer pool of FHA loans. So we're going to do like, nicer ding and dent, stoves, gas stove, whatever, put those in there so that now that whole buyer pool can actually buy this house. And if you're in a lower income area, lower price point area, that could be really crucial. That could wipe out a big chunk. Next up, if you're getting offers, obviously, that's between you and your agent. You accept it, whatever. But you're going to have inspections come, and those are brutal, man. The inspectors, they eat your house apart. So the one thing I can caution you on it is you're going to get a laundry list about this big. And some agents on the buyer side and some people on the buyer side, they're going to ask for every single one of those. And so going through a couple of these now, what I can tell you is take the biggest issues. And here's what I recommend. And what I had to tell my last agent to do. Will you just call that agent and go, look, my sellers are so excited about your offer. They love it. But, he's not going to do all of these things. What's most important to your buyers? What would your buyers really like to see done? Oh my God, we wiped out 90% of that entire inspection and got like the 2 major things done, and then a couple little smaller things that, oh yeah, we can put that cap on, we can fix that, we can caulk that, whatever. But we wiped out 90% of it. So tell your agent when the inspection comes in, will you just call them and go, hey, we love your offer, we appreciate it, we really want to work with them. What do they really, really want on this? What means the most to them, or do they just want a credit? If we credit $2,500, will they just take that? And, you can solve a lot of this. So with that inspection, if they send it to you, it's not like you got to fix it all, but you don't want to blow up that deal. That's what I learned too, because I was going through this with this inspection and I was talking to another guy about it. He goes, dude, don't blow up. He goes, make it work with that buyer, because what you have to do now that your foundation's off on your first one, you got to go back on the market. It's going to be a red flag now. Like, why is that back on the market? And you have to disclose now all of the issues that came up on the inspection. So whatever you can do, continue to get that buyer to go through the finish line. So that is a massive, massive tip to you guys out there flipping. If you get a good offer, a strong offer from a buyer, try and make it work the first time. Don't get too, cocky with you, or not cocky, but like too prideful and like, oh, I'll get another offer. It doesn't work that way. You're typically going to just start going down and down. And this is a business, at the end of the day. So you really got to watch those profits. And then from there, it's probably going to be about a 30-day close. You got to cross those fingers and just hope this baby goes through. So with that, if you guys haven't commented yet or hit the like button, do it for me, please. I am doing everything I can to help you guys grow your business. But right now, click this. This is the playlist of my very first flip. So everything that I explained today, I broke it down in the most in-depth detail, even going through contractor budgets so you know how much renovations cost. It's in this playlist. Start at video 1 and go through it, and I promise you, you will grow your own house flipping business in no time.